Hello, everyone, and welcome to Seriously Loco, the Seriously Crazy fan podcast for El Paso Locomotive FC, a proud member of the Beautiful Game Network and brought to you by Roughneck Scarves and Icarus FC. I'm Phil Bakke. I'm joined tonight by Mikka Burrell. Mikka, what's going on?
Not much, Phil. It's been a long week, so I'm happy we're doing this on a Friday night. We can kind of just chill and see where the conversation takes us. So
it took a while for us to get emotionally into a headspace to be able to talk about this, I feel.
Yes. Yeah. This week I was kind of, I dove in, I don't know about y'all, but I dove into my work really and just tried to not think too much about it. But this, we had to put something out there for the people. So I think we wanted to give them a chance to digest too. So
yeah, it certainly, I think for everybody, there was just a lot of emotion around that game, and the way that it ended felt even more bitter than last year somehow. And we're also joined by Christian Canales. Chris, it's tough to take 2 years in a row, but I don't know. Yeah. How are you feeling after this one?
Here we are again, I guess. I too, like Mikka, threw myself into my work. Listeners can't see this, but I did arts and crafts with my first graders today. But I definitely threw myself into my art this week. No, but I mean, it's wild that we're here to, we're recording on a Friday to talk about a Wolves win, right? Because that's why we're here. Right? That's the only thing there is to talk about.
Wolves down Palace, so that was a solid win for Nuno and the boys, getting back on track.
Yeah, it's. I mean, obviously people have games in hand, but we're in third in the table right now, so I'll take it.
Crazy.
But yeah, so like we said, we had a couple of days to kind of digest, and just been kind of thinking about things, and I couldn't bring myself to think of any sort of profound question, but I thought of just some seasonal questions. I've got kind of a 3-parter, but they should be quick hitters, so we won't waste too much time. But given that tomorrow is October 31st, I'm wondering, what is your preferred candy?
Ooh. You go first, Phil.
Okay. I'm gonna go widespread, mainstream candy that's available, and you could conceivably get if you were trick-or-treating, and I'm gonna go for the classic, a Twix bar. Twix is just such a solid candy bar.
It is. I don't know if you would get this trick-or-treating. I guess it's kind of like a niche one, but I love sour gummy worms.
Oh man.
Anytime I'm just stressed out or something, I'll just go order some off the apps that deliver or yeah, exactly. Or go down to the gas station, grab a bag of those. So I love those. Twix is a good shout though. I'd probably go sour gummy worms and then second maybe Reese's Cups.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So
what's yours, Chris?
So we got a sweet, we got a sour, and I'm kind of savory. So dark chocolate is my favorite. That's something that you might get on Halloween, the Hershey little nugget things.
Sure.
But my actual favorite candy that you don't see, I like chocolate covered peanuts.
Okay.
You can get those at Walgreens, in boxes, but it's not something you get on Halloween. But that's my favorite. But
nice.
Part 2, keeping it seasonal, still moving just past Halloween. Turkey or ham for Thanksgiving?
In general, or
on Thanksgiving? Sorry.
Oh, okay. It's got to be turkey.
It's turkey, hands down.
Interesting. I that's how I always thought too. But in my travels, air quotes, I've learned that people don't like turkey.
Because they make it wrong. Because most people dry the fuck out of it.
Yeah.
You got what I do, and people have different ways of doing it. But I always what's the term? Oh my god, I'm dunking on people now. I can't even think of what I do. But basically, I let it sit in buttermilk and spices for a day, and that tenderizes the hell out of it, and it's juicy when you cook it. So. Yeah. I can't think of the term for what that is, but
briny.
brining. There you go.
Yeah.
It's been a long week, so
That's
I brine
key.
it, and that makes a big difference. But
That's key. Yeah, if you just take a turkey straight out of the freezer and stick it in the oven for like 2 hours, like
it's gonna be trash.
Yeah, it's not gonna be good. It's gonna be looking like a Christmas Vacation. Like,
Yeah.
And I'm glad
turkey.
that you guys said turkey, because that kind of leads right into my next one, which I wouldn't have been able to ask if you said ham. But dark meat or white meat?
I don't know how you feel, Mikka, but I feel like as a kid, I was much more, or like as I was growing up, I was much more dark meat. But nowadays, I tend to go more towards white meat. As I mature.
I think it's as you mature. I was just gonna say, I think it's definitely like an acquired taste of white meat that is, typically drier. I like dark meat because I guess I'm still childish, but it's just tastier. But I'll eat both, like whatever.
Yeah.
I'm
So.
dark meat all day. And it's funny because like all my family is dark meat and all of Martha's family likes white meat. So we just need to get together and split a turkey every time.
Right.
There you go.
But yeah, it's dark meat for everything. I can't stand like breast meat or anything like that.
Yeah,
It's not for me.
those are good ones.
Yeah.
Now I'm hungry. Thanks.
Already looking forward to Thanksgiving, but unfortunately, we got to take a look back now to last weekend, and we got to talk and dissect Locomotive's loss in the Western Conference Final to Phoenix Rising on penalties after a 1-1 draw. It couldn't separate the sides in 120 minutes, so it went to penalties, and Phoenix got the better of Locomotive 4-2 in the penalty shootout. Again, I mean, we stumble at the same hurdle in terms of it's the same game, Mikka, as last season, but there is an element of feeling even closer, not just because we took it all the way to penalties this time instead of just extra time, but against Phoenix, it feels like another slight step forward, even if it was not a full step forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of understand what you're saying is that this is the best team in the West, undoubtedly. And to start a winning streak, having come off a loss to them, and then to end it losing to them, it kind of, I think, is a yardstick of where this team is. Obviously, in the playoffs, and especially in a knockout playoffs like we have in USL Championship, it's it's a bit different in terms of if the ball breaks your way, if calls go your way, form of different players and what have you. But yeah, I think we are closer and we're gaining parity on, the Phoenixes and the like of the West. But I think that's why it hurts even more. I think last season we were kind of playing with house money and just shocked at having gotten as far as we did. But yeah, this one is one that, and we said it, this time last year that, when we were kind of doing our season 1 postmortem that, the fans are going to expect more. And so I think that's why it hurts.
And Christian, I mean, we do, like, the fact that we are disappointed after a game like that does speak a lot to the progress that was made, despite the fact that it was this crazy kind of short season that Mark called a free hit. I mean, we came out of the Western Conference Final absolutely bummed that we weren't going to the final. As crazy as it is, and as in the moment we feel like probably we should have advanced, given the state of the game, that is progress, it feels.
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting to think about, like, what I would have preferred, like what I have preferred, like if we have to not advance, like, do I want to lose like we did last year, or do we want to lose like we did this year? And it's hard, I think, to think about, because they're both, I mean, we've lost 2 like heartbreaking conference finals in a row. And so I still don't know how I feel in that regard as to, like, would I rather lose like at the death in extra time, or would I rather lose in a penalty shootout? What do you guys think?
I would rather, I mean, not that I would rather lose, that's kind of a weird way to put it, but penalty shootout, it feels more random. So for me, it's a bit easier to accept, but the occasion and the context of the season for me is what made this year hurt more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, it's similar because the penalty shootout in terms of the suddenness of the result is less than a last minute, like at the death winner, like we had last year. 'Cause that moment was so shocking and so just gut wrenching that it I don't know. It happens so suddenly, whereas the penalty shootout kind of builds in dread, right? Like there's this moment where that first penalty gets, when you miss a penalty and you're behind, and then, maybe we don't save one. And so it's like, okay, well, now we're trailing. And then it's like, okay, now we really now we must make it, or we have to make a save. It kind of builds in terms of the inevitability of the result, I guess. Whereas the sudden, loss at the death, like last season, was just so shocking that I feel like that's much, more painful. But Christian, I mean, we come into this match, like Mikka said, 13 matches unbeaten, 14 matches, too tall in order for this team. It felt like a lot of the things that this team had overcome, the injuries, the amount of games in a row that they had played, going the full 120 minutes, it felt like a lot of that stuff just kind of, like the magic ran out and it just kind of caught up to us.
Yeah, and that's what I said, when we recorded the last episode, is obviously there's luck and there's things that have to fall your way, 5 games in a row, 4 games in a row for you to get to a final. And, like you just said, all those minutes, not even missing a penalty shot, 2 games in a row, not missing, not getting blocked, anything like that. That's all luck. And yeah, I say that's all luck, but it's just one of those things that has to happen. That isn't easy to happen is what I mean by that. But yeah, at some point it's got to end. And as much as I went into the game feeling like our luck was going to run out, you still have to hope, I guess. And so, I was still hopeful until, the very last kick.
Yeah. Mikka, the way the game starts and the way that it plays out, we obviously saw the same lineup that we had seen from Locomotive throughout the postseason and indeed like at the end of the season ever since Omar's injury, basically. And in a matter of moments in the first half, we kind of see a microcosm of Josue Aron Gomez's luck combined with some of Phoenix's luck in Schweitzer's goal. And so Gomez played in by Chapa at one end, saved from Zach Lubin, doesn't really know a whole lot about it, but makes the save. Phoenix go up the other end, huge deflection on the strike, and it dips under the bar into Logan Ketterer's net, and Locomotive are somehow 1-0 down. And it felt so Phoenixy in the way that it happened.
Yeah. I mean, look at the stats, and it's very Phoenixy in that we dominate possession, get a load of chances, but they get even more chances than us, and the ball definitely breaks their way. To be fair though, on the Schweitzer goal, yeah, it's unlucky for Richie, but the fact that he, which the fact that he's having to track that runner in that space shows that there was a breakdown in the build up for us, and there were mistakes in the build up. There's 2 players marking Santi Moar, which to me seemed totally unnecessary because it leaves that half space open for a runner like Schweitzer to just get in there and get something. Yeah. Get away a shot. And Richie's not the fastest guy in the team, so to rely on him to close down that opportunity is to me a breakdown in the way that we played. I mean, Rebellon and I don't know who else it was, marking Santi Moar. It just, that was just, it wasn't great for us. The finish is lucky, sure, but the defending overall left a lot to be desired, at least for me.
Well, and to go off of that, Mikka, Maka, King, and Brahim, in the way that they defend, there were times when they interchange. And it seemed in this case that Brahim and Maka both follow Santi Moar, and Brahim, despite the fact that, he's moved into the central midfield spot, does drop back to the right to cover for Maka at certain times. In this case, they both go with that first runner, Santi Moar, and in the space where Brahim would have been if he hadn't tracked back into that position. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's basically exactly where he would have normally been.
Yeah, exactly. And you said it right there. They follow Santi Moar, but more importantly, they're following the ball, you know, which shows me a lack of understanding of the space there. On the other hand, though, I feel that Brahim felt he needed to cover that space more often than he would, because I felt Maka King was just shirking a lot of defensive responsibility on the night, gesturing towards his teammates to close other players down, wanting to just kind of stay in line with Mishak and Yuma. And so Brahim either indirectly or directly felt like he needed to cover that space. And I think that breaks down pretty early. I think this was like the 18th minute or something like that where Schweitzer gets that break. So it's disappointing and on one hand maybe it's a consequence of Brahim Rebellon, right back by trade playing in midfield, but at the same time Maka King, he did not have a good night for me.
Yeah. It was a tough one. I think for both fullbacks on the night, it wasn't like a banner day, and certainly not either of their best games. But in the prologue to Phoenix's goal, Christian, we do have a big Gomez chance and an unlikely architect in that Chapa actually plays the ball through for Gomez to run onto. And Chapa was playing it was the prelude to Chapa and his performance on the night. He actually played a pretty offensive role while he was on the field and was pretty influential the whole night, it seemed.
Yeah, he had a really good game and not in the way that we're used to him having a good game, like you said. I think typically for Chapa, a good game is, him hustling and, botting some people around and forcing some people off the ball. But like you said, starting with that first Gomez opportunity, he was playing some fantastic balls. Just things that I wouldn't have guessed he had the vision to do. So yeah, he contributed plenty. And it was promising, I guess. I don't know why it happened, particularly. I don't know if it's because Mark wanted him to do that or, he just found something inside him for this occasion. It's interesting to see if that's something that'll happen again.
I think it does show some growth for Chapa, because one of the things that we've often pointed to is his progressive passing, like his forward passing has never been necessarily his strongest attribute. And we've talked a lot about how he's very good at ball retention. He's very good at pressing. He's very good at winning the ball back. But in this game, he was actually very good at advancing the ball as well and linking up with Dylan and Gomez in the center of the park and creating these chances. So, yeah, I think it's hugely encouraging, and it does speak to the fact that Chapa is growing a lot. And we've spoken about that, ever since the beginning of last season in terms of his growth as a player. But it seems like we see these kind of new facets evolving every day and each week. And in this case, with the absence of Nick Ross, I think we've seen that Chapa can maybe fulfill that role to a fuller extent than what we expected when Nick initially got hurt, because we obviously highlight other parts of Chapa's game. But Mikka, this whole first half, the way that it played out, it felt familiar, I feel like, to a lot of our matches in Phoenix, where we had a decent amount of the ball, we had some joy, some chances, and some opportunities to really get at them, but we never really felt that dangerous. And I think we've joked throughout the season that we're second half FC. Do you think that was part of the game plan for Mark to come out strong in the second versus the first?
I have a hard time imagining that it would be the case that Mark would want to take that chance of conceding the first half to hit them in the second, just because they're a more talented team. It has to be said, and I think you want to nick something early and then build from that. So for me, and I said this on our live stream on Sportscaster, I just thought that we just were moving the ball way, way, way too slow, and they made the pitch feel very big, and like the ball just felt like it was traveling through mud. The tempo just wasn't there in the first half, and luckily for us, I feel like Phoenix really couldn't do that much with that. They were happy kind of to see us just kind of like lumbering on and being pretty pedestrian, I would say, but. No, yeah, I would have thought Mark would want a bit more intensity than what we saw in that first half.
Go for it, Christian.
I think that for the first 15 minutes, we did very well. And then we do this thing that we always do, especially against Phoenix, where they score this shocker goal. And then we're just terrified of them. We're terrified of them.
Withdrew into ourselves for sure.
Yeah, we were terrified of them for 30 minutes, which was very frustrating to watch because this isn't a game where that can happen. We're playing literally for a direct result at the end of this. Something happens at the end of this game. So it was, like Mika said, it was just frustrating to watch. Because it just looked like it almost looked like they stopped caring almost for the rest of that half. Everything was so lackluster and so boring, honestly. It was just boring.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was odd how big an impact, because I think we've seen this team react better to conceding throughout the season than last year's team, because often going behind was almost a death sentence at times last season. This season, it hasn't been quite as catastrophic most of the time, and we saw some of that kind of shell shock, like you said, just that moment where it seemed like we almost might let the game slip away from us. And it did carry on for a long time. And it seemed like really Mark needed to get his hooks back in the team, I guess, and get a hold of them at halftime and really get the message across that, hey, this game's not over, and we've been okay when we actually do try to play our game. And the second half, Mikka, they come out and it's all Locomotive for the duration.
Yeah, the intensity that we thought we might see from the first whistle was there in the second half for sure. We've seen this kind of in other matches in this season with the hydration breaks, is when Mark gets a chance to talk to his players. Oftentimes he can turn the tide for them and elicit a response. And in a situation like this, in a Western Conference final, you almost wish that wasn't necessary. You would think that the players would be fired up, on their own, especially with all the veterans that we have in this side. But yeah, it was much better in the second half. The passing was more crisp. They were really knocking the ball into feet, trying to play football, and not be scared. So yeah, and I think the goal, Brian's goal, results in that, because Dylan just slaloms through Phoenix's midfield and defense, and it falls kindly to Brian.
The goal, Christian, we've spoken a lot this season about pressure and building pressure, and kind of a lot of the games that we've, either equalized or scored late, it's been that mounting pressure from the second half, the beginning of the second half. We were building that pressure, and luckily it only took a matter of 10, 15 minutes for it to result in that Rebbe goal. But it is another goal that is born from just putting the other team on the back foot and taking an opportunity when it does fall.
Yeah, for sure. We rarely score like against the run of play, I feel. And yeah, I'm glad it happened earlier. I think that allows us to come into the second half more comfortably, and continue, the high intensity that we came out with. I think it's really hard after, 20, 25 minutes of nothing's happening for you and you're down to stay motivated. But to come out with a goal, and one like that too, like what a goal. Between Dylan's the week before and that one, two of some of our best goals ever, to get that early and be able to kind of key on that and build on that momentum for the rest of the half was helpful.
Brian hits it with his left foot, and it didn't stop rising before it hit the back of the net. No pun intended, but it's a goal like that is so satisfying and should be enjoyed for what it is, which is just an absolute pile driver.
Oh my gosh, yeah, screamer. Maybe one that maybe USL will look at for goal of the week, but I don't know. Even if we hit screamers, we might not get into any of their superlatives. But
only 4 teams scored goals this week, and we still can't get into goal of the week.
For real. No, yeah, it was a fantastic goal, and one that it's sad that one won't be remembered in association with a win. That could have been really an iconic moment in our history, and it just isn't. That's football, I guess.
It was reminiscent a little bit, maybe not as high quality as Kiffy's goal against Fresno last year, but a weak-footed strike from a relatively unlikely goal scorer is always interesting. Although, now that come to think of it, Christian, Brian scored with his left. The winner against Monarchs this season was with his left as well.
Yeah, and he got knocked out that time, so thankfully he was able to stay on the field for this one. But yeah, he's had 2 very similar goals. I think that one was from much closer in, but still, he can finish with the left, and strong too. That's the interesting thing, is how strong those shots are.
Yeah,
coming off the weak foot.
Yeah, and it's always a joy to be able to celebrate a goal like that. Very cathartic, and it did put an exclamation point on the fact that Locomotive had come out so strong in the second half. They take advantage of that fact, and from there until the clock struck 93, I mean, the chances were all Locomotives to win this, with a couple of Phoenix exceptions. Not saying that they weren't in it at all, but Locomotive looked far the more likely team to come away with a win. And unfortunately, the conversation inevitably will go to Josue Aron Gomez, who just wasn't at the races that night and couldn't put the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah.
Yeah. Question answered.
I mean, like 6 shots, good quality shots, good looks, not really speculative at all. And that's just this game, We want to total up, we could total up basically halfway through the regular season, but because it was that kind of year for him. But he just did not finish. Like, he did lots of other things for us, but in the end, especially in games like this, you've got to finish, and obviously there are other chances, Dylan's free kick and all that, but still, as the goal scorer, you've got to score goals when it matters and when there's something on the line.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to say he missed a couple sitters, like truly.
Yeah.
And I hate that, I hate to criticize, but that it is what it is. There were some that you should be putting away, It's definitely unfortunate. I think he is unlucky, but there, if it almost felt like the game, I can't even remember if it was either Tulsa or New Mexico where he hit the post like 4 times. We saw how frustrated he looked at the end of that one, and it felt like that he never really made peace with that, because his confidence in this one, and we see it in the penalty shootout, he was just bereft of confidence, and so it's no wonder that he didn't finish any of those chances. We hoped he'd kick on, having scored that goal against Real Monarchs right before the start of the playoffs, because he had been in quite a drought before then, at least 5 games, not having scored. But yeah, he didn't do it when it mattered, and it's disappointing. And a lot of the emotions after the match were focused on that, and fair enough. But yeah, it's very unfortunate for Josue, and 1 or 2 of those chances, and we're in a final.
Yeah. It's really difficult because I think when you look at Gomez at the end of last season and through the playoffs, obviously he was our brightest goal scorer. When Jerome Kiesewetter dropped off and wasn't really doing much in terms of production, Gomez really stepped up, was basically a huge part of the reason that we even were in a Western Conference final in that season. And when we looked at his goal scoring return, we saw a player that was finishing, if he scored at that rate over the course of an entire season, we were looking at Golden Boot type numbers. And so all of the stats really lent itself to, okay, we have potentially an elite goal scorer at a USL level. And we saw now this season almost the opposite, where he was presented with far more chances throughout the end of the season. And for whatever reason, in this case, despite the fact that he was finishing quite clinically at the end of last season, this season he was being very wasteful. And so I have to think that he's very much a confidence player. I think we see strikers like this, throughout the game, where when he feels confident and when he's feeling himself, he'll just score by the boatload. But the second that his confidence goes, you may as well not play him. There's just a mental thing. Now I will say, in this particular match, there's one in particular, even the first chance is more of a Lubin save than the second big chance for Gomez in the second half. It is past Lubin when he saves it. He sticks his arm up just kind of instinctively and manages to somehow parry it over the bar. But the ball is past him. And so how he gets to it, how he keeps it out, I have no idea. I'm confident that he doesn't make that save 999 out of the next 1,000 attempts. But for whatever reason on the night, he somehow gets it over the bar. And so that is the fine margins that we're talking about in this game is, the way that he spun his hand up was just enough to spin that shot. But the ball is behind Lubin and he somehow saves it. So I don't know. I think there's certainly criticism to go Gomez's way because he is, at the end of the day, he is one of our main strikers. And for bringing in Leandro Carrillo and trying to bolster that attack in the absence of Omar, the chances all fall to Gomez and he's unable to convert. So it's just it's just the way things go. Now, Gomez is also involved in another controversial moment in this game. And Christian, we didn't really, I almost forgot about this in all of the other things that were wrapped around this match. But Gomez is through on goal, a ball over the top, and is pulled back just before entering Phoenix's penalty area. I mean, it is a clear chance whether he would score it or not. We're not really sure, but he's pulled back by the jersey. It looks a clear sending off, and the referee just doesn't give it.
Yeah, no, I mean it's clear as day. It's a foul all day, and the ref is right there too. Like he's literally like 5 steps behind, arm extended, just clear as day. But you know, if you don't fall, you're not gonna get that call, according to whatever the fuck his name is.
Yeah, Devin Kerr. I mean, Mikka, Devin did point out in the broadcast that basically, if it was a foul, then Gomez would have fallen down.
This is what's wrong with modern football, is that's never been in the rules.
Right.
Ever. Fouls are fouls, regardless of falling or not. I mean, that's ridiculous. And that's why you see Neymar and the like, who get kicked in the ankles week in, week out, fall as much as they do, because they want to make sure that the referee sees it. And is it despicable and gamesmanship? Sure. But it comes from a place of, the ref is not protecting me. I have to make the most of this. So, it's unfortunate that the league's, I guess, color commentator is perpetuating this idea, because it's just one of those things that's really wrong with the way that football is played, in my opinion.
What makes a foul is not like the severity. Like, obviously that's what changes it, from a common foul to a yellow card to a red card, that kind of stuff. But like if I'm on the field and I'm playing against, like, I don't know who's the biggest guy in USL. You say like Dadashov. Like, if I punch him in the chest, like, it's probably not gonna hurt. Is it a foul? Yes. Like, it doesn't matter how like intense it is. He shoves him. I think I don't remember if he shoves him or pulls him, but it's just a clear foul, and there's no way it should have been called. I think it's a red card. I think he's the last defender back there. So I don't know. I don't know what else is supposed to happen there.
Yeah, and listen, we're not trying to make excuses for the result, because I think ultimately I think Phoenix probably would have nicked this one, to be honest with you, just because of the way that some of the the way that Gomez's confidence was just hurting and having to get to penalties. I don't think that this would have necessarily changed the outcome. But I just feel like we wouldn't be really analyzing this match fully if we didn't point that out.
Yeah, it's a denial of a goal scoring opportunity, and that's all that is needed for a red card offense. It's not a penalty, but Phoenix would have been down to 10, and that certainly changes the math of and like the odds of pulling out a result. I believe that the referee lets himself off the hook by not giving that foul, because referees, we often talk about, they're the ones who are bad are kind of inserting themselves or making themselves the focal point. But there's also a responsibility of referees to make decisions that change games when it's the right decision. And I think the impulse in these elimination games or conference finals or finals, across like the game elsewhere, is always to err on the side of keeping it 11v11. But you can't do that to the point where someone does something blatantly illegal and against the rules of the game. Like, if I 2-foot someone in the Champions League final and like threaten their career, I shouldn't avoid punishment just because it's a big occasion and I want to keep it 11v11. Like,
it's like a Buffon getting sent off in, what was that, semifinal?
Yeah.
I mean, that's, the trash can heart memes poured out of that one, but it was a foul had been committed, and the referee got death threats after that one. But same energy. Like, it doesn't really matter,
right,
what the game is, what the game state is, or what's on the line. I mean,
our season, the universe found a way for our entire season to be wrapped up in one moment as the clock struck 93. Foul given on the edge of the Phoenix area. Dylan Maris steps up to take a free kick. Curls an absolute beauty towards the top right corner. And it hits the crossbar and goes over. I mean, guys, like, at what point do you just say, like, okay, like, yep, this is what 2020 is. At the end of the day, we have some beautiful football, a good run from Dylan Maris, a lovely free kick, and it clangs off the woodwork.
Yeah, Dylan's been threatening from those positions the entire season, and I think he ends the season on as many goals as Gomez had, and like half of those from dead balls. So this one is one that I'm saying is 100% unlucky, because I don't think there's anything in his technique that warrants criticism. I mean, it's just inches that we're talking about. And yeah, very, very on brand for 2020 for sure.
So Christian, we head to extra time, and I mean, there's not a ton to say during extra time. There is a couple of the incidents that take place, but at the end of the day, like, we were truly trying to hang on for penalties.
Oh yeah, I mean, Phoenix has more stamina than we do. That's what it comes down to, and they have more stamina and they're more talented. So at that point, I think that you kind of just have to hedge your bets and, like you said, just play solid defense for 30 and take the chance, take the easy chance if it comes to you. But I wasn't surprised or disappointed with the way extra time looked. I think they did what they had to do.
Mikka, this is where we I feel the difference in resources between Locomotive and Phoenix, in that people just kept coming off of the bench for Phoenix that are legitimate first team quality players. And it felt like we started to just kind of run dry at a certain point.
Yeah. And we were, I don't know what their injury situation was, but we were also hamstrung by that. I mean,
of course,
bringing on, I love Nick Ross, but bringing him on, expecting him to make a difference after the layoff he's had and surgery and all that, it's just like levels compared to what Phoenix was bringing off the bench. So yeah, you're exactly right. Again, not trying to make excuses. These are just facts. I mean, Phoenix is a big, rich club, so
yeah,
good for them.
Yeah. Santi Moar, who was in for the suspended or, on leave Junior Flemings, is making as much as Locomotive's highest paid players. And he was a bench option for much of the season. So that just so everybody has a picture of the financial clout of Phoenix Rising, and why they're one of the best teams. It's not all down to, the manager or culture or anything. Anyways, so the penalty shootout, guys. I mean, obviously, Christian, you mentioned that Locomotive had not missed a penalty up until this point. Neither had Phoenix coming in to the shootout, and Locomotive had been reliant on a little bit of luck against New Mexico United and Cody Mizell, not saving any of their penalties that he was actually getting to. In this one, Lubin showed that despite their similarity in appearance, he is the superior Lubin Mizell regen.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's just like he's a very big guy. And he just I don't know what like his like measurements are, but it just seems, and maybe it's just because I'm paying more attention to him in these moments than maybe I am like when someone's shooting against us. I think I'm just more focused on the shooter when it's against us, but he just seems to take up way more space in the goal than Logan does. They just seem to be like built differently. But yeah, I mean, he does his job. But before we have to talk about how sad the penalty shootout was, I want to like bring up how smooth Leandro's PK was. Like he has the balls to just like roll it in there.
I know that he's very much by this point, he's almost like adopted Mexican, like more so than Brazilian. But Mikka, that had some seriously like campeonato like energy to it.
Yeah, that penalty was ice cold, and I mean, I guess I expect no less from a veteran like him. But it did feel like an eternity watching you roll in.
I guess the disappointment is, for as cold as Leandro's penalty was, the rest of Locomotive's penalty takers did not carry the same swagger. And unfortunately, Nick Ross, who we obviously rate very highly, and so does Mark, he goes the same way in the penalty shootout for the third week in a row, and Lubin not fooled at all.
Yeah, the penalty's taken very quickly, and there's a lot of pace on the ball, but it's never at a height that threatens Zach Lubin, who is 6'5". It's an awful penalty. I'm sorry, it has to be said. It's just not very good. I think he was hoping that he could catch him out with how fast he took it, but Lubin's just smarter to it. And yeah, you felt like that was definitive of how the rest of it was going to go. At least that's how I felt.
It did have that kind of air of inevitability, I feel. And Christian, like each time a Phoenix taker stepped up, Logan has been so good facing penalties since he joined Locomotive, and it just never felt like he was going to get near any of these.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to, again, like, this is Phoenix, and so there's this little voice in the back of your head that's like almost telling you that you can't do this. And like you said, I wasn't confident that he was going to stop anybody. God knows I wanted him to, especially Moar. I was just hoping that he would get to block that one, but it just didn't feel like it was going to happen this game. And again, I think I was cautiously pessimistic this game anyway. So after 90, I'm hoping that we can get into penalties, because I don't think that we can outscore them in extra time. But once it is penalties, it's just that like wave of dread that personally came over me, and I felt like this was the end.
That's so like, I know it's like seems dramatic, but it really did feel like that. That's it really did. Like, it's over. Well, guys, to close this one out, as Locomotive do fall in the Western Conference Final, and we do need to take care of some things ahead of what will likely be a season review or some sort of kind of wrap up episode, either in the coming days. We have to add to the Shithouse 11, and I'm not sure how you guys are feeling from this one, but we do need to find to round out this squad from this shortened season. Who from Phoenix makes the cut for you?
whoever it was that tried to haul Gomez down and should have been sent off. I don't remember exactly who, but him.
I think it was Farrell. I don't know, but for me, I think it should be Lambert, just from that fucking tackle at the beginning of the game.
Oh yeah, where he tried to break Yuma's leg.
Yeah. That where I don't even think he gets a talking to. I think it's just a whistle and take your kick.
Yeah.
When
Yuma had just been booked.
Yeah, for a much more innocent tackle.
Yeah.
So I'm saying Lambert because yeah, that tackle was ridiculous.
That's a good shout. And is it Damian Lowe who actually pulls back Gomez? I'm not sure.
Is it? It's a center back. I couldn't remember which center back it was.
I like, in my heart of hearts, I'd love to give it to Schweitzer, only because he scores from just a wicked deflection and then celebrates absolutely crazily. Like, goes absolutely batshit. Like, that's sprint, knee slide to the sidelines. It's like, bro, we all know what went down here. Like,
yeah, we all saw it.
Yeah. But no, I agree with the Lambert. I'm down with the Lambert nomination, certainly, if that's agreeable with everyone.
Yeah, that was a bad tackle.
Yeah, and the fact that I think he finishes the game without being booked.
I don't think anyone got booked for Phoenix. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think anyone got booked for Phoenix.
Wait, now I'm like,
Yuma got booked though.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
Wait, but now hold on. Stats. Where's my stats?
We need a producer already.
I'm very concerned. Oh my, wait. Okay, no, this is just wrong. FotMob did not keep track of bookings because I know a lot of yellow cards were handed out and it says 0-0. So
yeah, nah.
They failed on that one. But anyways, well, Christian, with it being the last game of the season, we had the end of our score prediction league, and it's time for the final standings.
Yeah, and we should have held like a committee meeting before, because we have some questions that need to be answered. Phil, Austin, and Mikka all predicted a Locomotive victory. No one had Rebellon scoring, so they all finished with 0 points this week. I unfortunately had predicted a Phoenix victory. But no, I didn't get the score right or anything. So I get a point for that, which leaves us in a very interesting situation. Phil, you and I were tied going into the week, so Phil ends the year. Phil ends the year in the relegation spot with 16 points. But the drama doesn't stop there, because Mikka only had a 1 point lead going into the final week. So Mikka and I actually end tied at 17.
Oh, wow.
Austin takes the victory. We don't have to talk about Austin. He's had this in the bag for like 10 weeks now. But Austin ends in first with 23, but that leaves the last bit of administrative duties is how to determine a tiebreaker. My proposal, I'll have to go back and look, and maybe we can have a final result like on the final episode of the season. But my proposal is, for the first tiebreaker, is how many times a correct goal scorer was predicted.
Yeah, that seems fair.
So I'll have to go back and look. I'm not going to do it on the air right now to figure it out, but I'll do that this week, and maybe we can talk about it on the next episode.
Wow. Well, congratulations to Ostradamus. he locked it up early. He went the Liverpool route to winning the league.
My God.
Just get it done. Just get it done early and coast the rest of the way. But yeah, I don't know. No prizes this year. My thought that for the coming year, whenever the next USL season starts, if it does, my thought is I would love to open this up and maybe do some kind of prize for people who send in their predictions, and we include the listeners as well for next season. So just a thought ahead of the coming season. But for now, that wraps up Locomotive season. But we still have a bunch to talk about, including the USL Championship and League One final or lack thereof. Some departures on the horizon, and then the USL yearly awards. But first, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Seriously Loco. The end of Locomotive season is obviously not the end of the USL Championship season, and there is one match left to go. Mikka, the USL Championship final coming up, it's scheduled for Sunday. But now we've gotten news that 3 Rowdies staff, including their manager, have tested positive for COVID-19. And this is on the heels of the USL League One final between Greenville and Union Omaha being canceled due to positive COVID cases in the Omaha camp. The USL Championship final, it seems like it's going to go ahead, but the protocols have been breached, I guess.
Protocols have been breached, or someone's just extremely unlucky. I don't know. I hesitate to kind of assign blame. Not that I thought you were, but who knows how people get COVID. You see a lot about, well, we need to be responsible, and sure, yeah, but there are people that do everything right and still get sick.
Sure.
So it's very unfortunate. Especially when you saw how Phoenix Rising celebrated. They had, the makings of a super spreader event over there in Scottsdale, and yet somehow it's Tampa Bay that are have 3 positive tests. So yeah, very unfortunate. But at the same time, hopefully this will kind of spur them on. They'll rally around the manager and the staff that are affected, and hopefully they can do something in this one, because I'm absolutely rooting for Tampa Bay. So.
Yeah, I think it's worth just putting in an earn brew for the lads. But Christian, the crazy thing, like Mikka said, Phoenix celebrating on the field and with fans, no masks on, all this stuff. Tampa Bay, the ones who end up getting COVID. And in fact, Tampa Bay's manager may now likely will not be able to take part and be on the sideline for the final. Meanwhile, Rick Shantz, placed on administrative leave for being dismissive of Junior Fleming's homophobic comments earlier this season, will be on the sideline for the final. And 2020 just continues to be the gift that keeps on giving in terms of injustice.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that will top it is, I don't know what time the match is tomorrow. I think it's probably at 7-ish, but the only thing that will top it is if at 6:30 they just come out and say that Tampa Bay can't take the field and they're going to award the trophy to Phoenix by default or something. That's the last straw here.
Just throw the whole year away.
The wrapped up in this is obviously, I think we all have expressed on social media just our opinion in terms of this game and where we stand. I mean, I've said either from Seriously Loco or my personal Twitter account that I am rooting for Tampa Bay. In the immediate aftermath of the game, I expressed support for Tampa Bay. I do not want Phoenix to win. I can understand why Locomotive fans would show solidarity or want to see Phoenix win, because then you can say you've lost to the champions. But For you guys, where does your, when you think about this kind of Western Conference versus Eastern Conference, is there any sort of connection for you, or is it simply they're our rival and I want them to lose? Because that's how I feel.
Yeah, so I can certainly understand why some Locomotive fans would want to see Phoenix go on and do it for the reasons you just said. We can gain the moral victory by saying we lost to the eventual champions. And to be fair, Locomotive and Phoenix Rising fans have a pretty friendly relationship, especially between the supporters group, which is always good. I think they rally around making fun of New Mexico collectively, which I love that. So, but
watch your profanity.
For me, God, I'm not interested in moral victories. I want to see Phoenix lose. And Tampa Bay Rowdies are one of the historic footballing clubs in the United States. I mean, obviously this is not the same like corporate entity as the original Rowdies and all that, but they do have a lot of history. And plenty of players from Europe and particularly England have played for Rowdies. And I just think that I just would be more interested in seeing them and beat Phoenix, bring this Phoenix team back to earth. Because so far it feels like they've just been dodging all the controversy and with their on pitch results, and it's a little annoying. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, and I think for me, it has a lot to do with context. I think I would be more inclined to root for a Western Conference team, except I haven't these last years because of the manner in which these teams have reached the final. With the last second goal last year and losing in penalties this year. If Phoenix beats us 3-0 this game, then, I'll probably root for them. I'm probably doing that. But just because of how they advance in this one, I find it harder to want them to win just because of I feel hurt by them. So that's my opinion on this.
As far as obviously we don't talk much about USL League One. We haven't really covered the league much up until this point. But the final getting canceled does impact a former Locomotive player in Seb Contreras, and it's pretty brutal for Seb to make it to a final in his first season in Omaha. He's the captain of that particular side as well, and now doesn't get the chance to play in that final.
Yeah, that's rough. Like, I guess I haven't looked into it all that much other than reading the headline, but I'm just interested in why that decision gets made.
I mean, I think from a pragmatic standpoint, and Mikka, I'm not sure your feelings on this, but the USL Championship final being on ESPN, the actual flagship network, is essentially the difference between why the championship final will go ahead essentially, regardless of these positive cases, and the League One final could not withstand any positive cases.
No, yeah, I mean, exactly. That's exactly it. There's TV rights and money involved in the USL Championship final, and sadly for USL League One, the integrity of the game is not worth anything. In this case, so much so that they felt they could cancel the final and award the championship to Greenville. And so, yeah, I feel bad for Seb Contreras. He's captained this side and really seems like he enjoyed himself in Omaha, and to not be able to play for a trophy is gutting, like especially in these circumstances.
For the championship final, it is Sunday on ESPN. I will certainly watch it with interest, and it'll be hopefully an enjoyable game. I think Tampa Bay is, having watched the Eastern Conference final against Louisville, I think Tampa Bay can cause anyone problems. They technically are a very good side. And they have a lot of just good like technicians, literally, not, they don't just counter, they get the ball on the ground and counter, which is a nice change of pace from what we often see. So their style is very easy on the eye, I think, and the fact that they gave Louisville problems at home will certainly give them, it'll give them a shot against Phoenix, but it's two teams that like to play without the ball. So it should be just a wild final from a neutral perspective, which we're not watching from.
Yeah, I'll be watching. Let's go, Rowdies. I just need to know, has anyone here in this podcast tasted Earn Brew?
I have not.
I'm so curious now.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because I did a bit of research, and by that I mean I tweeted at Nick Ross and Richie Ryan, and Andrew Fox doesn't have Twitter, so or Jermaine Forta or Moses McKinday, but I was looking for people from the British Isles and what their take on Earn Brew is, and Richie Ryan being Irish, obviously not, and Nick Ross being Scottish, they had polar opposite views. Nick loves the stuff, says it's the best quote unquote fizzy drink out there. Richie said it's absolutely disgusting and that he doesn't have any time for it, and there's basically no point. So
we just gotta ask Mark.
Yeah. And maybe we will hopefully speak to him in the future about this season, and we can ask him for his Earn Brew takes in the wake of this final, because Tampa Bay has certainly embraced it with Neil Collins, the manager. So yeah, it'll be an interesting game, and certainly going to watch that one with interest. But in Locomotive news today, a little bit of breaking news from the club, and we knew. I actually got a tweet like immediately following the Western Conference final of, is it too soon to talk about the roster and departures and possible arrivals for next season? I said, I'm not ready to talk about it. Like, let's wait until at least Monday. And then he came back to me on Tuesday. I still wasn't ready to talk about it, but here we are. It's Friday, and it was announced today that Drew Becky, Saeed Robinson, and Moses McKinday are all departing Locomotive, end of their contracts and through, mutual agreement. Those three players will be departing. What are your guys' instant reactions to this one? Because it seems like news that is not all that surprising, but it does kind of hint at some of the areas where Mark is going to need to strengthen as well.
Yeah. For me, it was surprising in that, like, we're in that time of year again. Like it seems like, honestly, it feels like it was just yesterday that we're dealing with this kind of stuff. And obviously there's a long time between now and March when a season would typically start. I don't know if that's how it's going to work this next season, but obviously there's a good time between now and there. But it's just interesting to think about this time last year. And this time last year, we're still a new club and we've never been through this before, but now we're, on our second ride and have an idea this works. And so it was just shocking to just kind of get that reminder that, we're in that time of year again. Drew, obviously having been here longer, I think that one is I guess sadder is a word for it. Obviously, unless your name starts with an M and ends with Ika. No, but he's been here longer. I think that, regardless of what he may or may not have done for us on the field, I think that it's safe to say that he was a very likable person. One of the friendliest guys on the team. So to have that kind of personality leave your team, it hurts. And I'm sure that everyone in the locker room loved him too. I mean, he just got that likable personality. So I think that that's something that will be missed. Saeed did a lot for us at the end of the season. I think he didn't have the beginning of the season that we were quite hoping he would, and because I think that his time here will look kind of like unfulfilled, like untapped potential. But he did. He came through for us, and he gave us some really good moments. You know, the huge win in Salt Lake at the end of the season. You know, the penalty against Tulsa, I think he took the last penalty. So he gave us some good moments. And Moses, I think we've said since the beginning of the year, was kind of one of those players who almost kind of like Fabrice, in that I think maybe he just never gelled with the team that maybe he was expected to, and maybe he was cheaper to keep around, you know, for the year. But I think that's the one that I'm least surprised by personally.
Sure.
Yeah, I think the most surprising one for me is Saeed, just because of the way that Mark kind of talked about him and saying he almost kind of made it seem like he was invested in this player, especially when he spoke about how they really didn't know what his best position was. When we kind of asked him, do you think of him as a wide player or striker or midfielder, some combination of all those things? So it seemed like the club was willing to kind of develop that. And so it made me think he was potentially a long-term piece. Certainly thought that he was at least good enough for the bench for this Locomotive side. But yeah, I'm a little disappointed by that one. Drew Becky, I mean, y'all know how I feel about him as a footballer, but as a person, fantastic guy. You know, and in a lot of ways has taken on a lot of the public image of the club, you know, with, you know, first thing comes to mind, of course, is the coronavirus, video that he did to, you know, make sure people are following all protocols that allowed us to get on with our season. So, you know, he was very prominent in those kinds of things for the club and social media and all that and that kind of thing. And obviously he had a very interesting background as a player, having gone through some health issues and being able to come back and play. So yeah, that's a sad one too. Moses, I definitely get like Daniel Navarro vibes from him, just a player that was always on the fringes, it seemed like, and a defender as well to boot. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where he lands. Obviously, that's one out of the British core moving on. So hopefully we can replace him with someone who can slot right into our culture. So yeah.
Yeah, I think Moses was always kind of surplus to requirements with Foxy and Adair. Once Adair came in, it always seemed likely that Moses would be one of the first departures. Drew, like it's been said, I think he came in and he certainly did a job. Especially the tail end of last season, I think we needed him in a lot of moments and employed him, maybe not always in a way that was complementary to what he's good at. But he's stepped up and he's been able to plug some gaps. And I think, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I would love to see Drew Becky go to a Canadian Premier League team and like go, play in his native Canada and play, compete for CONCACAF Champions League spots, like, which is apparently a thing for the CPL. So I don't know. I think that could be a good, move for him to go be, if he can go be that kind of like face for a team up there and help, kind of spread some awareness and build the league, and kind of the awareness of, what they're doing up there. I think it could be a positive move for all involved.
He should join Atletico Ottawa, who are owned by a certain Atletico de Madrid. So that would be fun.
Do they just want to stake their claim in every North American country? I mean, they have a Mexico team. Apparently they have a Canadian team. Like, what's going on?
Well, just keep your eyes peeled for, Atletico Des Moines in MLS in, 2030.
If we can have a Rio OKC, then I don't see why not.
Yeah. And as for Saeed, guys, I think we know, and it's become a little bit of a joke on social media amongst us, but we know that the club in its recent business has been very shy about signing attackers. And Leandro was obviously brought in, but Saeed departing now puts maybe even in a sharper focus on the fact that, and coupled with Gomez's struggles towards the end of the season and into the playoffs, Omar's injury being very long term, it's brought pretty sharply into focus the fact that Locomotive have to go out and invest in attack this offseason.
Yeah, it really is that obvious. We need a striker, a wide player. Yeah. I just hope that this time we don't bring in a target man. I just think that, we saw with Lomis, it just does not work in the kind of game that we play, the kind of system that we play. I hope we can find someone who's athletic and pacey and prolific. I mean, I know I'm asking for a lot there, but I mean, really, that's what we need. Going into our third season now, we need to start. I would say that we have to win a trophy sometime soon, because these, back-to-back Western Conference Finals, it's kind of like you've set a standard now, and the kind of bluntness of our attacks has been the issue. So I think if Mark is able to invest, that's probably that part of that pitch is where we should do.
I think talking about investing, I think it's interesting. I think that we're probably one of the better off clubs financially, but I think that's another thing to take into consideration is because of this kind of year, like what does investing look like? But also I guess that works both ways too, where, the team doesn't have money, but also like, I think that we're not the only one that doesn't have money. So players probably have to ask for less at this point. But I think that that's another thing to keep in mind too, I guess, is how much can we afford after this kind of season?
Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to see what the market is like, because we know that Mark likes to look abroad in the off seasons, but will that be viable this year? Given all of the restrictions, given, the US being kind of on every other country's, hotspot or like do not travel list at the moment. And any sort of visa process, all that stuff is going to be a lot slower, or maybe non-existent compared to what it's been in the past. So we may see a lot more domestic moves from Mark than what we maybe came to expect in the past couple of off seasons. But it'll be interesting, and we'll certainly cover that as it occurs. But as for Locomotive's current squad, guys, as we kind of put a bow on this episode and indeed on this week, the USL Championship announced its team of the year, first and second team of the year, and its individual awards, including but not limited to goalkeeper of the year, defender of the year, midfielder of the year, attacker of the year, MVP, and coach of the year. And I think we'll go kind of line by line, but between the team of the year and all of the individual awards, Locomotive in the Western Conference Finals for the second year running have no one among the nominees and no one in the team of the year, first or second team. And the notable snubs, we can start with our number one, Logan Ketterer. Led the league in clean sheets during the regular season. 2 penalty shootout wins in the postseason, and yet Logan not among the nominees for goalkeeper of the year and not in the top 2 keepers in the league. What more does this man have to do to be recognized as a top keeper in this league?
Oh my God, I don't know. I genuinely, I mean, it feels like we are. I don't know. We just go about our business and really don't attract too much attention to ourselves. Ourselves being El Paso Locomotive FC, which, you know, for those of us that like winning, that's great because we do win, you know, but we don't get the respect or the attention that fans probably think that we deserve from the league. And maybe that begs the question of should we care about the approval of, you know what I mean, of those pundits, I guess. But yeah, to answer your actual question, I have no idea what Logan can do, what more he can do to prove that he's really in the elite, as far as netminders in USL Championship, and, you know, up and down the ranks below MLS, honestly.
From a purely, like, I don't know if this is the right word, but like practical standpoint, I think that it probably comes down to what we've talked about before, in that he himself does not face a lot of shots. And it's hard to like stomach, but I think that from like a numbers based award, that's one of those numbers that matters when you're evaluating a goalkeeper, unfortunately. And also I think that the structure of this year didn't do him any favors either. I'm pretty sure we were like one of the lowest scoring groups. So as far as like difficulty, you know, for a keeper in our group, I think he was probably kind of at the lower of the table there. That's not me saying that he doesn't deserve recognition. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate and come from just a purely statistical standpoint. That's my guess for how that snub came about.
I think the inclusion that is galling for me, because I don't necessarily have an issue with Ben Lunt being in there, or whoever the other Vidiello from Riverhounds. Although I think Vidiello is actually the more galling inclusion, because he only starts half the season in a group that includes 3 MLS 2 sides. So I don't really like put a whole ton of stock into how their season played out in Pittsburgh. But the one that's galling to me is Brandon Miller from Charlotte, because his save numbers are what set him apart. He leads the league in the number of saves, but that just means that they are conceding like stupid amounts of shots each game. So it just means that if you play on a decent side, you're less likely to be included in the final team. And it, you know, not to throw too much shade at Charlotte, but I don't think they make the postseason in a normal season. So I'm just saying that 65 saves in a 16 game regular season is too many. Like, he should not have to make that many saves. But yeah, Logan for me, it's shocking that him and Evan Loro as well from Tampa Bay, who he's in the final, have the same amount of clean sheets and actually don't get the recognition of being up for goalkeeper of the year. So, or in the, you know, top 22, you know, in the teams of the year. So the next man that doesn't get the recognition for Locomotive is the new man, the one, you know, the focal point of the offseason, Dylan Maris. He comes in, chances created, second only to Solomon Asante, but no love for our boy.
I told myself I wouldn't get mad about these things because it's like, again, it's very arbitrary, but it's annoying, you know, like Dylan was crucial, absolutely crucial to the season. Really didn't need a lot of time to settle, which is very impressive. That just shows you the quality that he has. It doesn't matter what situation or new environment he finds himself in. He put up insane numbers, and we missed him when he wasn't starting, for rotation purposes. So yeah, one of the best playmakers in the West for me, probably one of the best in the league, and lethal from a dead ball. Another one that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Christian, where I think we almost, in Dylan's case, have a player who is ultimately left off this list because of his teammates, where 46 chances created resulted in only 5 assists. Meanwhile, Asante's 51 led to 9 assists. Do you think if we had more finishes at the end of his chances, we might be having a different conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's obviously, I'm sure he doesn't blame it on his teammates, but it is, like you said, his job as that midfielder is not to score goals, it's to help other people's, and he has certainly done that. I don't know exactly what constitutes a chance created, but I just think of the quality of his passes and his creativeness on the ball, and easily the best player on the field for us all 19 games or however many games we played this season. And if he can't make it to a team, all league team, first or second, then then no one else is certainly doing it. From our team, I should say.
Yeah, and that's what I think from the player's standpoint. Him and Logan are the two that really stand out, and I wanted to float this name out there because not because I think he was snubbed, but because I think if he had played to the level that he did at the end of the season, I think he would have been a shoo-in, was Mishak Jerome. If he had played at the level that he had for the second half of the season and the playoffs from the start, I think he would have been at least second team in a team that was so solid defensively.
I can already imagine people listening to this and cringing at that because, and not because I disagree. It's just that I feel like Mishak has this reputation or this I don't know what you would call it, but I just see a lot of banter, I guess you could say, about how he's out of shape or he doesn't look like a footballer would and all that. But technically he's brilliant. And I'm always gonna say that. Joe Rodriguez's piece about Mishak right before the Western Conference Final kicked off highlighted these issues that, yes, he was, he did come back to the team out of shape, 15 pounds overweight, but he worked on that. And again, he had a devastating injury. Let's not forget, that's not easy to come back from. And I never felt like he played with any fear. So yeah, for the, I don't want to sound elitist in any way, but I think for the people that really understand the game and understand what Mishak Jerome brings to a back line, he probably is one of the better defenders in the league. But if you're looking at this from a purely athletic standpoint, I can see a lot of people disagreeing with that one.
The coup de grace, the biggest snub by far, and one that in my mind is not even up for debate. The fact that we're having to even talk about this is a stain on USL's overall reputation, and they shall carry this shame with them for years to come. And that is the boss, Mark Lowry, not nominated for Coach of the Year, despite winning his group, taking Locomotive to a second consecutive Western Conference Final. And guys, I can't help but feel like this is the fault of New Mexico's governor?
I mean, I guess, I tend to agree with you. I think, when you look at the three nominees, you have the Louisville City coach who, for his second year has pretty much dominated the league with them. Took them to a final last year and a conference final this year. So I guess you can't really argue with that. Obviously, he knows what he's doing with his club. You have the Reno manager. They scored the most points or earned the most points in the season this year. So yeah, that's worth something. But the saying, like, I don't feel like I don't feel like a storyline should get you the award. It's purely based on the fact that they played their season on the road, which is hard. I get it. I don't think that makes him one of the best managers in the league. He didn't win his group. He got eliminated earlier than anyone else.
He was eliminated by Mark Lowry.
Yes. So it just doesn't make sense. It seems like I guess these awards are distributed by the league, and it's purely a storyline for them, is what it comes down to. I don't think it's a deserved nomination. I'm gonna be mad as hell if he wins, because I don't think he deserves the win. Is all it comes down to. He does not deserve this award more than Mark Lowry does. Period. End of sentence.
What did Kelsey Steele say in the episode of Steal Some Time that had Mark Lowry in it after the Locomotive New Mexico playoff game? Like, I want to start out by talking.
First, I want to talk about New Mexico United.
Yeah, that's what this feels like. Because here's the deal. Louisville City and Locomotive actually mirrored each other in terms of their form by both finishing on these 13-game win streaks to make it to the conference final and then losing. So if you're going to nominate one for his form in the East, then how can the person who matched the exact level of performance, like literally turned the season around at the same time, went on the longest unbeaten run in professional American soccer at that time, and took a club to a Western Conference final despite injuries to, Omar Salgado, Chiro Ntoko, Andrew Fox, all hurt the whole time. And we're not having a conversation about potentially manager of the year. Now, what I will say is that I'm fine if Mark is going to fly under the radar for a little bit longer, because
that was my shout. Yep.
I mean, the sooner that he gets identified as a top manager, the sooner he is departing, if we're being real.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I tried to comfort myself by saying, well, Mark wouldn't have this level of control over the entire sporting aspect of the club at another club. But eventually the prestige and the money and the chance to prove yourself at a higher level comes calling. And that's fair enough. He's more than earned attention. But if the league wants to help us out in retaining Mark Lowry, then fine.
Just keep him low key.
Yeah.
I think that, and I'm sure, I don't know if this is the episode to talk about it, but I just feel like I don't imagine Mark making a lateral move. And I can't imagine that he would go anywhere else in USL and coach. Even if they offered him, like Mikka said, kind of the same amount of control, any of that. And I can't imagine why the club would let him do that, why they would make that an option. And I mean, he's young, he has a whole freaking career ahead of him. And I am excited for, like, I would like if he goes to, I will follow him is what I'm trying to say. But like if he goes to like coach a English League 2 squad, then like I'm following, I will download whatever illegal stream I have to watch every single one of those matches. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think that the day will come, and probably sooner rather than later. I don't think Mark is going to stay here for 5 more years as much as I'd like him to. But yeah, I mean, if we can get 2 or 3 more because no one wants to give him any love, then yeah, like Mikka and Phil said, then I'm okay with that, I guess.
Yeah.
Mark did coach in Wolves' system. You know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think at some point he'll be one to follow in the footsteps of Gio Savarese, who's at Portland Timbers, who was the manager of New York Cosmos, Mark Dos Santos. Like there's these examples of managers jumping from the lower leagues now to MLS, and I do think that will eventually be on the cards. I think the thing that helps Locomotive, and I'm pretty sure I spoke to Jeff Reuter about this earlier this year when we had him on the show. Just I think he has the luxury, Mark, of being in a very good situation for himself professionally and in terms of his amount of control. As you said, the finances, I think, are good compared to, some of the other situations across USL. So I think he is comfortable in the fact that he doesn't need to jump at a different opportunity. He doesn't need to move at any point. He can move when it's the right opportunity for him, and he doesn't have to, because Mark Dos Santos, unfortunately for him, very successful in NASL, but moved to Vancouver Whitecaps at a time when they had sold Alphonso Davies and basically said, we're not going to reinvest in the team at all. And then now it's just a complete dumpster fire. So I think we have the benefit of Mark being a manager who has options in terms of his future. And like you said, Christian, a lot of time as well. So yeah, definitely a topic for a future podcast, but that's my short take. And certainly I just don't get how the league wouldn't want to highlight a guy like him that's become so ingrained with the city, as well as, playing a very specific style and imposing that, because I think it's almost become, there's been like some pushback, well, especially from our favorite Devin Kerr, who kind of jokes about or talks about how the style is, predictable and all this stuff. But the bottom line is that we have a manager who has a philosophy and a genuine approach to the game. And he has now taken us to back-to-back Western Conference finals. And I know he's a Jurgen Klopp, disciple at the moment. And I hope, similar to Jurgen, he can get over in the coming years. He can get over the trophyless stretches and some of the disappointments, and it'll make the victories all the more sweet on the when they do come.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just as we kind of bring this one to a close, guys, I think it's kind of, it feels more surreal that the season is over than it did last year, because the anticipation of the coming season was, right on the horizon. We kind of knew, okay, like we're going to go into the off season now. We're going to have some like kit reveals and player reveals, all that sort of thing. Now the USL season kind of up in the air, not really sure when exactly it's going to start. A lot of the player movement is a little bit wonky compared to the past? Like, how are you feeling going into this offseason?
I just feel like our whole lives are in the air, you know, in that like it's weird because we thought, you know, going into a second season that we had like the hang of this and we knew what to expect, but like all of the things that we had this offseason, like you said, like the kit reveal event, all that kind of stuff, like that's probably not going to happen. And so now we're kind of seeing what an offseason looks like. We had our taste of what a regular offseason looks like in the USL, and now we have to figure out a whole new dish, which is like what a COVID offseason looks like in the USL. So it's weird. It's like we're back at square one again.
Yeah. Man, I don't want to do a freaking virtual kit reveal like that. I understand why that has to be done, but it's just so depressing. Like,
yeah.
Not having those things to look forward to like attend and you know, hang out with Locomotive fans and with the team and all that. It really just, this situation just sucks. Obviously not too eloquent there by me, but yeah, it is a whole new world again, you know. We'll see. Someday this will normalize and we'll actually know what to expect. But yeah.
Well, guys, we will be back. This is not the end of Seriously Loco season quite yet, because we do owe a end of season episode, and we will be back with that in probably next week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and although Locomotive season does come to an end, we will be back for whatever USL brings in the coming year too. So you can find us on Apple, Google, and Amazon podcasts, and Spotify as well. And you can subscribe or follow on any of those platforms. Spotify now includes new episode notifications, which will make listening to new episodes a little bit easier for those who follow on that platform. You can also follow us on Twitter at Seriously Loco and on Instagram at Seriously_Loco. So hopefully you find us there and follow along for all the off-season stuff just to keep us entertained in the meantime. And there will be all kinds of roster rumors and you know, hopefully some scoops at some point. But we will see how the off-season transpires. And until next time, guys, stay loco.